Welcome to the Let's Talk About Love, Sex, and Infidelity podcast with your host, Todd Krieger. Todd has over 35 years of experience working with thousands of couples as a licensed therapist in his private practice. Todd shares his insights on this show. It's never too early to divorce-proof your marriage or too late to heal yourselves and have the relationship you truly want.
Hi, everybody. Today I want to talk to you about therapy and infidelity. When there's been a discovery of infidelity, when do we need therapy? What kind of therapy? What makes sense? Now, of course, I'm not saying that with every individual and every couple that one kind of therapy fits all, but I do think that there are certain things we need to look at. But the first question is, when do you need therapy? I'll be blunt. I think always. The reason that I think individuals, couples need therapy from a good therapist, qualified therapist, someone who has some expertise in the area of infidelity is because, number one, it's so painful. Emotions take over. Friends or family may not always be the right people to go to during these times because they have their own feelings. There's a lot of emotion. And sometimes when people are just in that stress mode, in that survival mode, they really can't see what's really going on underneath it all. And why I think couples and individuals need therapy for the infidelity is because we need to understand deeper what's going on. We do. That's why my Healing Infidelity program is calling Infidelity from the Inside Out. We need to look at what's going on inside. That's where the issues are. If you've heard me speak before, I'm saying that it's not as simple as people that cheat are bad people. It's just not like that. People that cheat have hurt people. They've been very hurtful. They've made bad decisions. We're not giving them excuses. But they're not bad people. They're people who have had a lack of resources and have regulate their emotions in better ways, or they had poor role models, or they didn't communicate well, they didn't know how to communicate well, they didn't see role models of people communicating well. So what happens is, even though we say there's a choice, there is some truth to that. The person chose to cheat. But oftentimes, there are certain choices that they haven't been privileged to have. Give you an example. Person who never saw a couple of their parents communicate. The person, very simple example, who is in pain doesn't know what to do with it very well. Because one of the choices he doesn't have is to go to his partner and say, I'm having some issues here. I'm unhappy with the way the marriage is going. Let's work on it. You can say, well, that person could do it. It's not that simple. When the person that we're talking about hasn't seen it, it's not part of that's not in their thought process. And so their healthy choices are limited. I've had partners say, I would never cheat. That's probably true. Some people would never cheat. I don't think I would ever cheat. That's it. But I might do other stupid things until I learn more about me and my wounds and some of my core issues so that I have choices. Like even now, and I haven't cheated on my wife in my 41-year marriage, but I have options in how to deal with my wife, for example, when she's really angry at me that I didn't even have before. I didn't know how to soothe myself. I didn't know how to think about it. So what I'm trying to say is that the person who's I'm getting to the betrayed person in a minute, the person who did the betrayal definitely needs some therapy to develop some better options so that he doesn't go around or she doesn't go around devastating their partner and their family for these terrible choices. They need to learn what their options are. And I think good therapy does that. It really does that. For the person who was betrayed, it's devastating. And first of all, therapy can help that person just get some support, some care, some empathy, some understanding without necessarily taking sides or taking simplistic ideas, putting simplistic ideas on more complex problems. I mean, a skilled therapist will know better to do that, whereas family and friends might not. It's really important for that betrayed person to have someone that could be empathizing with them, helping them slow down and tune into them, possibly look at some of the wounds that it triggered in them from their past, if they were betrayed by parents or other people before, or prior relationships, or if they've been disappointed or abandoned, if they haven't learned good ways either to communicate well, or to learn how to soothe themselves, or learn how to set boundaries. These are things that I think a good therapist can help with. Now, the kind of therapy probably is less important than having somebody who's skilled in it, like I just said before. But I do believe that the best kind of therapies that work with healing from infidelity, as well as many other kinds of problems, is those that go deeper, that they are working on what's really going on, what's really hurting, what's the parts of you that have been left behind, that cut out your choices. How can we help you grow through this crisis? So you want to have a therapist who can see things more deeply, who could work with trauma, because oftentimes, almost always, there's some trauma that is part of the problem on both the person who betrayed and the person who's the victim. So you would like someone who has been comfortable working with trauma and who also is skilled with couples, of course. If you do couples therapy, not all therapists are. You want to have a couple of therapists who can handle the back and forth. The two people have different perspectives, who can maintain empathetic to both people. So the therapist has to have some depth as well. And you would think that all therapists have depth, but that is not always the case. A little side note, but it's totally related to what I'm saying, is I've had people like 30 years after my grad school experience asking me where I went to grad school. I go, I'll tell you, but these are new prospective clients. That's not the right question. Here's a good question to ask. What kind of therapy have you done? A lot of new clients would never think of asking that question. I've had a couple, but that's wise, because you want a therapist who has worked on themselves. So it's the kind of therapist you want is someone who's worked on themselves, who has gone through some things and come out the other side. And like I said, who understands depth, who's probably works well with trauma and also works well with couples, can motivate and challenge clients. You don't want the kind of therapy that the person's just listening. That's important. But there has to be also a challenge aspect to the therapy that helps people develop new coping mechanisms and new ways to be. The best kind of therapy for someone who is trying to heal from infidelity, or a couple who's trying to heal from infidelity, is a therapist who understands that the past does contribute to the present, and that we got to work more deeply with the wounds and the parts that, like I said, have been left behind, because maybe people that have all those options had problem solve interpersonal problems. And you also want a therapist that can work in the present, who can help you develop the skills of communication. One or the other is not enough. You want to heal your deeper wounds, your depth, but you also want to develop the skills to become a healthier couple or a healthier individual. I always say that when I work with couples and I say I have a very high success rate with couples healing from infidelity, it's not that they now are a couple where the person doesn't cheat anymore. That's necessary, but not sufficient. You want to have a relationship where you're becoming better than you were, that you're becoming more mature than you were, that you have more options than you were. And so you want a therapist who not only can work with you, heal your past, but help you develop new resources for the present and the future. So that's my stance on the whole topic of therapy and infidelity. I'll be happy to hear any comments you may have, and I will be happy to respond. But you definitely want to think about someone who's a good therapist, who's skilled. Reading books is great. Attending different kinds of programs is great. But I find that having the one person on one or one person on two attention that has those kinds of skills is a sensible and most effective way to go. Thanks for listening. This is Todd Krieger, making the world safe for love.
That's it for today's episode of Let's Talk About Love, Sex, and Infidelity podcast with your host, Todd Krieger. For free resources and materials, head over to toddkrieger.com. Loved this episode? Head over to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you.